Hey guys and gals, welcome to Paint Games and Cardboard again, and welcome to another deck tech here on the channel. Today I wanted to cover probably a little, well, unconventional way of doing dragons. Dragon Tribal I feel like is something that everybody wants to build, right? And typically everybody does the Dragon or forget the other one, Miriam, Sentinel Worm. But I watched the Command Zone, and they did a episode on the original, Elder Dragon Highlander commanders, and so that actually inspired me a lot. I really, really, really like the bad dudes, the bad dragon, Nicol Bolas, and so I built a Dragon Tribal deck around Nicol Bolas, and it's not necessarily that you're ever going to cast Nicol Bolas. It's more or less I'm using his colors to abuse some stuff, but this is a relatively high-powered deck, and so I wanted to cover my Dragon Tribal-ish deck today. So let's get on into the deck. So welcome to the deck tech for my Nicol Bolas deck. And so in a way, like I said, this is a Dragon Tribal deck, but it's also a Nicol Bolas Tribal deck. So you're going to notice some choices in here that are a little odd, and that's because I was trying to fit pretty much all the Nicol Bolas cards in the deck. I think I did pretty good. I think I only took one out, and that's because it was too expensive and didn't really do much. And so kind of the whole goal of Nicol Bolas, and I guess we'll read him first. So at the beginning of your upkeep, you have to sacrifice him unless you pay one of each color, because he's Grixis colors. And whenever he deals combat damage to an opponent, that opponent discards his or her hand. So in a way, if you ever get Nicol Bolas out, you swing at somebody, take him out of the game because now they don't have a hand. But he does cost 8. And so, generally speaking, you're going to play this deck without the intent of ever casting Nicol Bolas. Now, there are a few ways to cheat him out, a few things that make him actually pretty powerful in this deck. But 8 mana is a very, very steep cost, and so generally people will ignore you, and you won't cast him. So, usually when I go into a game, I tell people that. Now, we'll start out with the Planeswalkers, because I feel like this is just an easy start here. So we start out with Nicol Bolas Godfrey, and so I included this card because it is incredibly. Let's see, it's having a hard time actually focusing in on its text. Maybe if I turn off the light here. Sorry. A little bit of a camera issue. It's actually having a very hard time reading its text. It's really small. So here, I'll just kind of hold it here and I'll kind of read it. So Nicol Bolas Godfrey is really, really, really powerful. Let me turn back on the light here. And so his +2 ability is target opponent exiles cards from the top of his or her library until they exile a non-land card. Until the end of turn, you may cast that card without paying its mana cost. So functionally, this is a Natali. And you just pick an opponent and you get to Natali them. Then his +1 is each opponent exiles 2 cards from his or her hand. Stupid powerful, right? Discard 2 on everybody, but it's not just discard, it's exile. His -4 is that he deals 7 damage to target opponent or creature an opponent controls. Won't ever use that. And then last, his -12, exile each non-land permanent your opponent's control. So he is a one-sided exile, one-sided farewell. And so if you can ever get him to his big side, it's pretty much an instant win. Probably not ever going to happen. Generally speaking, when he comes out, you're just going to exile 2 cards from people's hands. Because, swinging 6 cards is pretty good. But he is very costly, and so we have ways to ramp him out. You will notice this is a very high CMC converted mana cost deck. And so a lot of things in this are meant to either slow the board down or speed your board up, so that way you can get your stuff out. We have Narset Parter Veils, just so that way people don't draw more than 1 card. This is my proxy one. I need to buy a second one. And you don't ever tick her down. So pretty much you're just going to play her out just to slow people down from drawing more cards. And then we have Nicol Bolas Dragon God. So this is the cheapest of the Nicol Bolas Planeswalkers, but also incredibly good. He has all the loyalty abilities of all other Planeswalkers on the battlefield. So the other day I ended up playing him out with actually Nicol Bolas Godfrey, and ended up using Godfrey's abilities on this Nicol Bolas, which is really awesome. His +1 is you draw a card, each opponent exiles a card from their hand or a permanent they control. So yeah, it's I mean, that's kind of weak. I mean, you get to draw a card, and generally speaking, people are just going to exile like something like a token, but, you know, never know. Then his -3, destroy target creature or planeswalker, so that's just good to have in general. And then his -8, each opponent who doesn't control a legendary creature or planeswalker loses the game. So if you ever get to that point, you deserve the win, but yeah, in Commander, this is definitely not something you're going to do. So generally speaking, I play him because his copying abilities of other planeswalkers is so powerful because there's so many good planeswalkers out there. And then destroying creature or planeswalker. So that's generally what you're using him for. And then we have Sarkhan Fireblood. So this is our cheap planeswalker in here, and he's very good in this deck. You can discard a card to draw a card for a +1. +1, add 2 mana in any combination of colors. Spend this only to cast dragon spells, which I will tell you, there's a lot of dragon spells in here. And then as -7, create 4 5/5 dragon creature tokens with flying. So I actually ended up killing the board using his ult the other day, because obviously I'm going to have a Terror of the Peaks in this deck. But very, very powerful planeswalker, going to allow you to ramp out, which is a big thing in this deck. Let's move on to, I guess, the artifacts? Question mark? I guess creatures, because we just talked about the planeswalkers. So let's talk about the creatures in which we're going to ramp out and get some of these creatures out. You know what? Actually, no. Let's cover the artifacts, because I want to cover the ramp package and stuff like that before we get to the actual creatures, which are like pretty much your win con in the deck. So we have Swiftfoot Boots, because if I ever get Nicol Bolas out, he needs to have haste. Along with Lightning Greaves. We also have a lot of dragons in here that you do not want to get targeted out, so having both of these was kind of a must-have in this deck. We have Talisman of Indulgence for ramp, as well as Arcane Signet, and a Talisman of Creativity. I don't have like an incredible amount of ramp, at least, well, I guess I do. I have about 10 pieces, I think, in this deck. But again, this deck is meant to slow people down and then ramp out as much as you can to get your big threats on the board. We have a One Ring because, you know, being immune to being hit is really good, and then also drawing cards. Really, really strong for Dragon deck because you need to draw into your dragons. Felwar Stone for more ramp. Wayfarer's Bauble for more ramp. And then a Mana Crypt. So this is my fake one. My real one is the, I forget. It's a normal looking one. But, so again, this is a higher powered deck, so it does have a few cards in here that would definitely put it in the higher power bracket, but having a Mana Crypt is really good, because again, a lot of our stuff is extremely expensive, so I need to get as much mana as humanly possible, as quick as possible. I'm not trying to win the game immediately, like, real quick. This tends to be like about a power 8. Like, I don't even know if this has a feasibility of winning before turn 5, but who knows. But yeah, Mana Crypt, so that way we get more mana. Relic of Sauron, because this one gives us 2 mana ramp, but also we can draw some additional cards, which is really strong, and it is in the Grixis colors. Soul Ring for more ramp. And then this one is kind of cheeky in this deck. So whenever the main reason you're going to use this, which is the bottom ability here, whenever equipped creature attacks, if it's your first combat phase, untap each attacking creature. After this phase, there's an additional combat phase. So really good in a dragon deck because we don't really have dragons other than, I think it's Hellkite Charger that give you additional combat phases. But this right here, after I equip it for 4, which is going to be pretty easy, if I can get it on like Nicol Bolas, right? Nicol Bolas can then hit 2 people so that way they get rid of their hands. Or there's a bunch of other dragons in here that getting multiple attacks would be very powerful, because obviously I run stuff like Ukvara, Hellkite in here. So really, really strong in this deck. Love it. It's really cheap too, which is pretty funny. And so that's the artifact package. For our enchantments, we're going to run some pretty powerful stuff here. We got Heuristic Study, because why not? This is a proxy black market connections, because I thought it looked really cool. So that way we can get additional treasures, draw more cards, you know, all the stuff. I don't ever use the bottom part in this deck. Usually you kind of need the life for other stuff. Propaganda, so people don't hit us. Animate Dead, that way we can bring back our dragons, which will inevitably end up in the graveyard at some point. Dragon Tempest, because getting all my dragons haste is a very, very good thing. And then Mystic Remora, because again, I want to draw more cards. So if you notice, lots of draw in this deck because we need to make sure we're hitting our land all of our lands on time, and then we also want to make sure that we can get some ramp pieces out pretty early. And there is absolutely no combos that I'm aware of in this deck. It's all just kind of synergies and things like that. On to our sorceries. So here's my proxy reanimate, because this art is just so freaking cool. And so again, our dragons are going to end up in the graveyard, so let's bring them back. We got a Windfall, draw some more cards, Blasphemous Act, board wipe. There's a lot of board wipes in this deck. Living Death. So this is one that I added in here because I have found that this deck tends to run into board wipes quite often. And you know what? If I can Living Death with a Terror of the Peaks in my graveyard, it more than likely is going to take out an opponent. So yeah, this is just such a good card. And then I found this version pretty cheap. It's like one of the secret layers or something like that. And it looks freaking cool. So, you know, included this in here. We got Crux of Fate. That way we can board wipe all the non-dragons. Damnation. Wheel of Misfortune, which this card spiked up a lot in price. That's why I'm proxying this one right now, because finding another one for cheap is pretty hard right now. But yeah, again, this is also a way to deal a lot of damage to somebody as well, because you have to bid a number of life to draw cards. But yeah, having another wheel in the deck felt really good, and that way, you know, I can refill my hand if I need to. Vandal Blast and Toxic Deluge. So lots and lots and lots of board wipes in this deck, because again, we're trying to slow other people down to match our speed, or you know, I had a game the other day where literally I was just sitting there for like 4 turns not doing anything, and so I used like my board wipes to control the field when I felt like I was going to get overwhelmed, or I felt like, you know, they're going to take one of my opponents out, because I want to make sure that all my opponents kind of stay in. That way it's like more distractions, you know what I mean? Then, onto the instance package. So we have Prismari Command. So this, you get to choose 2. Do 2 damage to any target. Target player draws 2 cards, discards 2 cards. Target player creates a treasure or destroy target artifact. So I really like this card in this deck because, A, it gets me a treasure, and then B, it's also a discard outlet, so that way I can get my dragons into my graveyard, so that way I can do stuff like reanimate them. So really, really strong. I like that. And then, you know, the 2 damage might come up from time to time, you know, if there's a Ragavan that's running muck, or somebody gets a Kinnan on the board. So really, really, really good card. We got Lightning Bolt. So I actually run a lot of CDH type cards in here, like Lightning Bolt, mainly to take out those really annoying early commanders. So that way I can just kind of, again, I'm trying to slow them down. Taking out key pieces, that way I stay in the game, and then just kind of making sure that they just don't win the game out of nowhere. And then we got Rakdos Charm, because, you know, being able to do 1 damage, each creature does 1 damage to his controller. Really good when, you know, there's so many token decks out there and stuff like that. And then also exiling all cards from target player's graveyard, because sometimes you have to do that. Here's my proxy Vamp Tutor. So Vamp Tutor, that way we can go find cards. Got a Terminate to destroy something. A Braid, again, CDH staple, but also destroying an artifact or taking out an early commander. Psych Rift, which I'm going to swap this out because I did pull an extra one just the other day, so I'm going to make sure I take this out. But yeah, Psych Rift, because, you know, again, another board wipe. And then this is a recent one that I added to the deck, Waterlogged Teachings. So this came in the you know, Modern Horizons 3, and I feel like this card is incredibly strong. You're going to see I have some strong creatures in here that have Flash, because this can target creatures with Flash, but also it's a way to go find instants, right? So I can go find my Psych Rift, I can go in, you know, find Vamp Tutor if I really had to. You know, there's not like too many strong instants in this where I would actually use it to find an instant, but I will use this to go find some creatures with Flash. And then, you know, it's got the plus of being a dual land on the backside. So, you know, if I'm running low on lands, this is a way so that way I don't have to mulligan again, because if anything, I can just play tap land turn 1, you know. And then on to the creatures. The creatures are like the bulk of this deck, a huge chunk of it, but there's so many super cool dragons and creatures in this deck. I'm going to put that guy in the back because he's one that I want to cover last. So yeah, let's start with the creatures. So Ancient Copper Dragon, I feel like this is a must-have in any dragon deck. Ended up buying one because I did not pull one out of several boxes, but it's pretty much one of the best dragons you can have. So absolutely 100% an include. Ketis Ember Claw Familiar. So if you've never met Ketis, which hopefully you guys covered my Yoshimaru video, whenever a commander you control deals combat damage to a player, it deals that much damage to each other opponent. So Nicol Bolas, if you read, his trigger is a damage deal trigger, not a commander damage deal or combat damage deal. So if you have Ketis out and you get Nicol Bolas to stick and you swing and hit somebody, everybody discards their hand. And that's probably game right there. So that's why Ketis is in the deck. He's not an early play in this deck. It's usually if you do end up feeling like you're going to play Nicol Bolas. If anything, he's like a good discard target or whatever if somebody hits you. So we got Nogi Dracozealot to reduce the cost of all your dragons by 1. And then whenever he attacks, if you control 3 or more dragons until end of turn, he becomes a dragon himself. So really good. He's a little expensive. He only came, I think, in a certain... I think this was like the Jumpstart or the party decks, but really good for dragon decks. Ruvaz of the Claw, yes, he's so wonderful. So a lot of people are sleeping on this dude because, like, again, a lot of people are playing Dragon or high-powered dragon. This is technically a high-powered dragon deck, and sometimes it might not operate like an Dragon deck. But this guy is just nuts. So he taps for 2 mana in any combination of colors. Can only be used to play dragon creatures. So he's just like Sarkhan that we covered earlier. But once during each of your turns, you may cast a dragon creature spell from your graveyard. Whenever you cast a dragon creature spell from your graveyard, it gains when this creature dies, exile it. So he is a reanimator of dragons as well. So that way we can bring back a lot of our dragons from the graveyard. Very, very good, very powerful ramp piece. We got Leyline Tyrant. That way we can just stock up all of our red mana to cast, bigger dragons on later turns if we have to. And if anything, he's just a 4/4 flyer for 4. Goldspan Dragon. This is a proxy version because I actually like this artwork a lot. So, but Goldspan Dragon creates treasure tokens and allows your treasure tokens to tap for 2. Again, another ramp piece. Hellkite Corsair. So this is one of our ways to get Nicol Bolas out. So when Hellkite Corsair enters the battlefield, you may put a commander you own from the command zone onto the battlefield. It gains haste. Return it to the command zone at the beginning of the next end step. So if this guy comes down like turn 4, again, you're going to swing at somebody with Nicol Bolas, 7 commander damage, take out their hand, and then he turns into just basically a 6/5 flyer. Just really, really strong, and if anything, there is a way to, we have ways to recur him to get Nicol Bolas out again. So just very strong, very good way to get out our 8-cost commander for a lot cheaper. Nightscape Familiar reduces the blue and red spells by 1, so again, a lot of cost reduction in this deck and a lot of ramp. We got Decadent Dragon, so a dragon that hits, whenever it attacks, it makes treasure tokens, so basically like a Goldspan Dragon. But also, you can cast him for 3, exile the top 2 cards of target opponent's library face down. You may look at and play those cards for as long as they remain in exile. So I've actually used this guy to make land drops because, I ran out of lands, and so at the end of turn, I went ahead and put them on an adventure. Top 2 cards ended up being lands, and so that way I was able to make my land drops for the next few turns, which was really, really clutch in that game. Terror of the Peaks, must have in a dragon deck, deals damage equal to power. We got Balefire Dragon. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, it deals that much damage to each creature that player controls. So again, another board wipe. Just swing, get a board wipe out. We got Bonehorde Dracosaur. This is my proxy one. I should probably put the real one in this deck. So Bonehorde Dracosaur is a new dragon dinosaur that came out in the Lost Caverns of Ixalan, but such a good card. Incredibly powerful. I feel like a lot of people are sleeping on this dude or like just don't know he exists. But at the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top 2 cards of your library. You may play them this turn. If you exile a land, you make a 3/1 dinosaur creature. And then if you exile a non-land, you make a treasure token. So he goes very, very well with Terror of the Peaks because he's going to make basically lightning bolts every turn. Almost every turn you're going to be making a lightning bolt at a minimum, and then get treasures. So really, really good. Then my favorite blue dragon, the Astral Dragon. So when he enters the battlefield, create 2 tokens that are copies of target non-creature permanent, except they are 3/3 dragons in addition to their other types, and they have flying. So the cool thing is that it's any non-creature permanent, and you make 2 dragon copies of it. So many situations where this guy comes into play. As an example, Sakashima, right? You can cast this, make 2 copies of Sakashima, which then make non-legendary copies of like some of our legendary dragons. There's just so many situations where this guy is so. I mean, that's why he costs 8. And I feel like a lot of people just kind of have not been exposed to this card. Now in this deck itself, there's not too many like great targets. I mean, if you target Bonehorde Dragosaur, like you'd be able to, top 6 cards of your library, or if we targeted Ancient Copper Dragon, gets kind of silly real quick. But just really, really, really powerful dragon. Definitely keep this one in your back pocket for whenever somebody plays a big threat that you want to just make 2 copies of it. Cavern Horde Dragon. So this guy came out in the Lord of the Rings set, and so he costs X less to cast, where X is the greatest number of artifacts an opponent controls. So if somebody plays that dockside, you're probably going to get a Cavern Horde Dragon pretty early. Flying Trample, and then whenever he deals combat damage to a player, create a treasure token for each artifact that player controls. Sound familiar? This is literally a dragon that is a dockside extortionist every single turn. You just swing at somebody, make a bunch of treasures, right? And he does have Flying Trample and Haste, so he's probably going to connect. Very, very powerful dragon. Wonderful, wonderful addition to dragon decks. And I love the fact that because I am limiting my colors with a 3-color chart, I was able to kind of dig deep and get some of these really cool dragons that you don't see very often. We got Dragon Lord Servant, makes dragons cheaper. Orcish Bowmaster. So this is where we start hitting some of the non-dragon or rampy things for dragons. Orcish Bowmasters is just a way to control the board, so that way, again, I want everybody playing at my speed. At a minimum, this just does a ton of damage. At best, it can pick off some key targets. That way, slows people down, like Ragavans and stuff like that. So, just really, really good, and he is one of the main reasons I run that waterlogged teachings I was talking about earlier, because sometimes somebody's got like a Ristic Study that's going off like ham, and if I can get this into my hand, that way I can flash it in, amazing. Slow the Ristic Study player down, Shieldred the Apocalypse. This is my proxy version, which is honestly, I think it's better than the actual version of the card. But anyways, so just so strong, just a very strong card, and so why not? Why not include it in the deck? Ragavan Nimble Pilferer, because I wanted a way to ramp out more, get more treasures. I have no intent of casting stuff from the top of people's libraries. I literally just want to make the treasure tokens. That's the whole reason he's in here. Op Agent. So so I guess there kind of is no, because I don't run I guess I have Narset Wheels in here. So in a way, I guess I do have some combos with the Narset Wheels. But again, Narset's literally in here to slow others down. So I don't think I would honestly ever cast the Narset Wheel to stop people unless it was like a CEDH game where like, hey, expect that I can do this. But in a casual game, I totally wouldn't do it. But yeah, I have Opposition Agent in here because, just really strong black card. Love it. Another Nicol Bolas. So Nicol Bolas the Ravager. So if you've never seen this guy, so this is our Flip Walker Nicol Bolas. Whenever he enters the battlefield, each opponent discards a card, and then you can transform him for 7 into probably my favorite of the Nicol Bolas Planeswalkers, Nicol Bolas the Arisen. And so the other day, the last time I played this deck, I actually flipped this into Nicol Bolas the Arisen and played Nicol Bolas God Pharaoh, so that way I had 2 the Arisens. Really good. Well, it wasn't God Pharaoh, it was the other one. But anyways, +2, draw 2 cards. -3, Nicol Bolas the Arisen deals 10 damage to target creature or planeswalker. Again, never, ever, ever using that. If it was target player, I would totally use it. -4, put target creature or planeswalker card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. Definitely use that one a lot. And then last but not least, -12, exile all but the bottom card of target player's library. So he is almost basically an instant win if you can get to the -12. If you noticed, that's kind of a thing with a lot of the Nicol Bolases, is that if you get them to ult, you're going to win the game. But if he flips, generally speaking, you're going to either be drawing 2 cards or you're going to be bringing a creature or planeswalker from a graveyard into the battlefield on your side. But he is actually a very, very, very strong card on his front side too, because he's just a 4/4 dragon that makes people discard cards when he comes into play, and he's not expensive. So arguably, if you wanted to be less janky and less funny, he would end up being my actual commander. But yeah, you know what? We're keeping old school. We're keeping old school Nicol Bolas. Keep it real, you know? Keep it real. Lathless Dragon Queen. Whenever another non-token dragon comes in the battlefield, you make 5/5 dragons. Excellent. We've got Fairy Mastermind because, you know what? Drawing more cards when other people draw cards. And then my favorite dragon, Slumbering Dragon. It is a 1-cost 3/3 dragon. Can't attack or block unless it has 5 or more 1/1 counters. And whenever a creature attacks you or a planeswalker you control, put a 1/1 counter on it. So this is a really good dragon to kind of deter token decks from swinging at you early, because, you know, if they start swinging at you, it's whenever a creature. So for every creature, I'm going to put a 1/1 counter on this. If it gets to 5, I now have an 8/8 dragon that's online to start swinging at you pretty early. So really strong. And then last but not least, my favorite dragon, Sarkhan Soul of Flame. So this came out in that little the March of the Machines Aftermath set. Dragon G cast costs 1 less, so he's a Nogi. And then whenever a dragon enters the battlefield under your control, you may have Sarkhan Soul of Flame become a copy of it until the end of turn, except its name is Sarkhan Soul of Flame, and it's legendary in addition to its other types. So, we play our Nicol Bolas, I get another Nicol Bolas. We play our Terror of the Peaks, I get another Terror of the Peaks. I play our Cavern Horde Dragon, I get another Cavern Horde Dragon. So many situations where Sarkhan is just so good, right? And so I just love him in this deck. And he was a little pricier. I don't think he's like crazy expensive, but just love this card in a dragon deck. And last but not least, our lands. Don't really run anything crazy in here. I think really the only thing of mention is Hall of the Bandit Lord. And I might actually put in that new one, the Arena of Glory, in here, so that way I can give haste to a couple of my dragons that come into play. But I honestly don't know. I guess Decadent Dragon would benefit a lot from that. But yeah, just being able to give a creature haste by using this mana is really, really good. But other than that, everything else is pretty typical in this deck. Don't run an Urzas in here because I mean, I could go find my Soul Ring, but generally speaking, I want colored mana because this is a very, very color-intensive deck. If you notice, a lot of things have at least multiple pips of a color or multiple different pips because, you know, we're playing a lot of dragons. So at a minimum, it's a lot of two reds. And I have a lot of cost reducers to reduce, you know, the overall cost of the dragons, but I definitely need the colored pips to keep the dragons coming out. So yeah, main win con of this deck, turn things sideways. So if you like to turn things sideways, check this one out. And so, off to the outro. So I hope you guys like my Nicol Bolas deck. I wanted to make a very functional dragon deck that, while it is on the higher end of the power scale, I didn't want it to get, like, pub stomped by a assortment of decks, right? And so I kind of had to find ways to ramp myself out to get my dragons out and not do like dragony things, right? And become like a very apparent threat from turn 1. I feel like a lot of people who play dragon, they really crutch on getting dragon out, getting him to swing, and then just kind of win the game, right? And a lot of people know kind of what dragon does, whereas when you play Nicol Bolas, a lot of people are just kind of like, what are you doing? You're casting dragons? Is that what you're doing? And that's literally what I'm doing. Again, it's a very, very, very fun deck. I enjoy it a lot. I think a lot of people like dragons, and so it's just a different way of doing dragons, right? So as always, if you guys like this video, please subscribe, subscribe, and share. Yeah, I'll see you guys here on the next deck here on Paint Games and Cardboard. Bye.